In status quo, vicarious liability, which is when the subordinates can use this term to mitigate them from being punished or punished severely because they can pass it towards their superior, is being used as a mitigating factor, right? By the same people who operates those military action or attacks, such as chemical bombings, unlawful killings, and torture towards prisoners, for example. We think that this vicarious liability what prolongs the unthoughtful operation in military which has killed so many innocent life, right? Our model, first, we're gonna eliminate vicarious liability in which we find that actually the subordinates is the one who really do or operate the crime, we're gonna punish them. But remember, we also still conduct investigation for both the subordinates and also the superior. We'll still receive the testimony from the subordinates, but it will no longer be a form of mitigating factor. We'll also still conduct overall investigation whether the system also contributes towards this attacks, right? We think that that's our stand. We think that military court should serve two main purposes, right? One, retribution, which is in a form of punishment, but also deterrence in terms of how to create a better military operation. First argument, this is a justified form of punishment, right? First, I'm going to establish why punishment in military is very important. We think that what military conducts is very, very important. They do bombs. They do they have prisoners that they can torture, that they can kill. We think that the action of anything that they will is very severe. Thus, we need to make sure that every wrongdoings has to be paid, right? We think that this person inside the military, which is the subordinates, are also justified people to be punished. There are two main reasons how people are justified to be punished, right? Number one, when they create impacts, right? We have to understand that inside a military operation, when you want to do chemical bombings, you want to attack certain cities, you want to torture certain military prisoners, you have to do this in cooperate. You cannot do this only by your own. So we think that these subordinates are also the enabler of any military actions that their superior want to conduct. We believe that they also the one who create the impacts, the undesirable impacts that we do not like, right? Second reason why people are justified to be punished, right? When they are consented to do it, ladies and gentlemen. So now this is the part when I'm gonna exploit the word of no longer, right? Back then, yes, people, for example, military have a very rigid chain of command and they're coerced to go into military, but because of there's so many dictation of political ideology. But it is a different case now. It is no longer relevant. We think that currently people already have the ability to pick and choose. There are so many criticism on political ideology, but moreover, we also have effective military court that the international community are very aware of. We think that when a person go into the military, they are already considered towards their role and possible jobs that they will do. We think that anything, there's any kind of jobs that they will do, even if it's given from their superior, they go. There is their consent to it. We believe that with this explanation, in conclusion, they fulfill the two parameters of why they are justified to be punished. They're gonna be punished. Second reason, but before that. Okay, my second argument will be talking about more thoughtful military operation, right? This is how I'm gonna exploit the idea of deterrence, because we cannot rely just on punishing people upon their act that which the harms is already happening, right? Because we cannot keep on seeing people being bombed, we cannot keep on people being tortured, but we need also have a system to prevent these actions, right? Thus, we need the real awareness of people inside the military to say if there is anything that is actually very wrong and might harm their reputation as well. But the problem currently is that there are complacency in the military operation. Subordinates do not want to take any more, they do not want to criticize their superior because they think that this is just what I'm going to do. This is already my job. The reason is that they have no loss in doing any of their jobs. They think that they can always blame their superior. They have nothing at stake. Before I
The question that government needs to prove is not And it's not that this soldier wants to or not, it's that whether these soldiers are capable to criticize the superior.
Okay, I'm gonna say what they capable, right? We think that the idea, but first I'm gonna explain to you, right, how this gonna change this person's calculation, right? They're gonna understand that their life is at stake, right? They're gonna understand that, yes, for example, the worst case that they're gonna be, when they critics, is that they're gonna be fired. This is why I address these capability things, right? Yes, probably they are fired, but it is it is a very small harm comparable to what they can achieve later if they're being punished, ladies and gentlemen. This is how they are, the ability for them to criticize is always there. But second reason, how this will change their calculation inside the military, right? There is an incentive as well from the leader not to keep on doing their stubborn strategy, and somehow gonna hear also what their subordinates say, because they know that yes, they are smart, yes, they have power, but they cannot do anything if they do not have thousands of soldiers that execute their strategy. This is how they do not want to lose the big amount of people who gonna criticize them, right? And we should also understand, most likely this critics not coming from individuals and gonna say have to the superior. This comes in a communal critics from these military soldiers, ladies and gentlemen. Moreover, we think that there is more incentive to from the superior not to do any wrongdoings that is very harmful, because war is or military operation is time sensitive, right? They need the momentum to show people that they have certain power, they can do certain attacks. They cannot just lose so many kind of soldiers and get another in one day. We believe that this is what incentives the people to also do have a better military operation inside their inside the military. This is very important, right? Because the selfish people on the top now will not have the ability to do anything that they want when they can just make their soldiers execute it, and they can just easily escape, for example, later on if because for example they have power. We think that they also do not want to lose any enabler of them to do such things. But moreover, we believe that in this idea, we think that any kind of justification from them should see the current context, what current people are already aware of certain ideologies that they should opt into. We're very proud to propose.
Panels, you need to note that all the things that is being committed by all the subordinates, it is all commanded by the supreme order. We are going to prove you that at the end, those people doesn't have the intention to do those crimes, and they don't have the capacity to prevent it from happening, ladies and gentlemen. If we can prove that, it means all the things that is being said by the Prime Minister, it is not valid anymore. So what do we want in opposition side? We are going to accept the vicarious liability in military court in status quo. It means whenever a soldier is being prosecuted and they use this kind of vicarious liability by saying that, look, I was ordered by my commander, therefore you should not punish me, we are going to accept that. We are going to exactly punish the supreme order in itself. We are going to punish the leader in itself, right? We are going to investigate them. We are going to ensure that those people are exactly really wrong, and we are going to punish them at the end of the day. Secondly, we are also going to have the further reformation in military, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, if she wants to have more thoughtful things like military operation, it is still going to happen in our side of the house. So this leads me into 3 questions that I'm going to address. Why your proposal is going to create unfair justice system. Second, why it is okay for us to not to punish the soldiers. And lastly, why our proposal is exclusively beneficial for the military reformation. But before that, I need to discharge several things that is coming from the Prime Minister. First of all, the parameter that she brought, that look, you can punish people whenever the people create impacts and those people are consented. I'm going to prove you why those parameter is invalid. Number 1, you can still pardon people whenever they already create impacts, ladies and gentlemen. For example, you are being raped by someone and you do self-defense by killing the rapist in itself. You are still going to be pardoned by the court, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, impact is not the parameter. Second of all, if she says that, look, those people have consented, yeah, they have consent, but the consent when they first agree to be part of the military, the consent on the white paper in itself is on the perspective of good government, ladies and gentlemen. It is on the perspective of just war and so on and so forth. The practicality is, during war, not everyone is doing that. The commander doesn't always do just war and so on and so forth, right? But you are all already under consent, therefore you cannot prevent that to happen. Second of all, on how they claim that, look, we are going to have more thoughtful military operation and so on and so forth. No, the prerequisite incentive to make sure that people are going to criticize their leader is to have vicarious liability to begin with, ladies and gentlemen, right? Because you cannot deny the fact that those soldiers are also complicit upon the crimes that is happening. Therefore, you need to ensure that those people are immune from the punishment, ladies and gentlemen, in order to make them speak up in the court and criticize the leader. So this leads me into my first argument. Why then you are going to create unfair justice system? In our side, we say that all the justice system that they have is lenient to the leaders in itself. It doesn't necessarily protect the soldiers. We say ideal justice system should punish people based on two metrics. Number one, intention, and second, the capacity to prevent the crimes from happening. Let's go to the first parameter, the intention. Those soldiers doesn't have the intention to do chemical weapon and so on and so forth. Those things are being commanded by the leader. Exactly, the one who has the intention is the leader, right? It is being translated into command. The proof is this: the one who creates the plan, the one who makes the decision of military operation, it is all done by the leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Because soldiers is the only proxy. Therefore, they don't have the fault in this kind of thing. Second of all, let's talk about their capacity to prevent those crimes from happening. Ideally, you can punish someone when they have two options, whether to commit the crime or not to commit the crime, ladies and gentlemen. But they don't have such option, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because number one, exactly, when they consider that there's a hierarchy of power during military, exactly, right? Those people doesn't have the channel to oppose the leader. Those people doesn't have the mechanism to say no to the command that is being given by the leader, ladies and gentlemen, right? Because those leaders would simply use the rhetoric, look, that we are doing just war, therefore you should not oppose me, and second of all, in that kind of hierarchical structure, exactly those soldiers are being imposed by such threat coming from the leader, right? If you don't follow the command, you are going to be seen as a traitor. You are going to be seen as someone who betray your nation at the end of the day. Therefore, they do not want that from happening, right? The consequences is this. For example, the leader can simply say that, look, you are not going to have your job anymore because basically food soldiers is irreplaceable, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be bad. Even if those people have the capacity to challenge the order, we don't think so it is going to be a valid justification. Why? Because there is externalities. For example, during the training to become a soldier, there are always, always hear the narrative that your commander is the best, therefore you should always follow their leader at the end of the day, right? Or the media who glorifies the idea whenever you always follow the leader of the order of coming from your commander, it means you are a hero to your country, ladies and gentlemen. Those externalities are something that you cannot control at the end of the day, right? Exactly, this is what is happening in Nazi. Even post-Nazi in itself, people still think that being a Nazi in itself, following what Hitler said in the past, is something that is justified, right? Exactly, the capacity to prevent those things from happening is on the hand of the leader, ladies and gentlemen, right? For example, those people have the preventive measure to not to create destructive strategy and so on and so forth. Second argument, why then it is fine to not to punish the soldiers? When do we exactly free individuals from punishment? Number one, when you have force majeure. Second of all, when you have excessive externalities from other party, ladies and gentlemen. That's why when you are a teller in a bank and someone pin a gun on you, you can also give the money from your client to that person, ladies and gentlemen, because you are under threat, ladies and gentlemen, because you are under excessive externality that you cannot deny at the end of the day, right? Exactly, this is fine, because even if we don't punish as much soldiers as we can, at the end, we can still solve the root problem, because in our side, we are going to punish the leader only, but not the soldiers per se, ladies and gentlemen. So lastly, why then this is going to be very beneficial for military reformation? This is going to inherently contradict with her argument that says that we are going to have more thoughtful military operation. First thing first, exactly, our proposal is the one who are going to create incentive for people to testify in court, right? For people to go to journalists to say that, look, my leader did this to me, asked me to do this, therefore, he's the one that is liable, and so on and so forth, right? Because when war, what do you need the most? You need to find as many as war crimes, for example, as many as war crimes that is being committed at that time, right? Exactly, our proposal is going to be the one that discovers the truth, the crime that happened during wartime, because you need to characterize the evidence that is happening within this kind of war crimes, ladies and gentlemen. The evidence is time sensitive. Second of all, you also have a lot of missing evidence. For example, after you create a strategy, you are going to burn the strategy, ladies and gentlemen, right? And most of the time, the comments are given verbally from your leader to you, ladies and gentlemen. That's why the only way for you to gain evidence at the end of the day is by ensuring that these individuals who directly experience the idea of the idea of being commanded by those people is the leaders it's the soldiers in itself. We think this is exclusive because when you're talking about, look, you have media journalists who are going to also criticize and so on and so forth. Those people doesn't internally experience those things, ladies and gentlemen. Those people doesn't have the direct experience or maybe being the actual witness of this kind of things. Even if in the status quo right now they want to say that, look, we have witness protection. Number one, it is still reluctant because witness protection doesn't make you immune at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. There is still a possibility of you being the accessory of the murder. Therefore, it is not going to be effective at all. We oppose.
Mr. Speaker, the decision maker for an army is the leader. We understand. It is the superior. But the one who executes every single decision, the one who fires every single bullet, the one who put chemical bombs in every villages is not the general. It is the pilot in the warplanes that dropped that bomb. It is the rifleman that kills those innocent people, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, their arguments about these people not having any agency is completely false. Because if you want to say that these people do not have any agency, then you need to prove that every single bullet that is fired and every single bomb that is dropped is pressed by the general, not the people that they commanded, ladies and gentlemen. If there is still a balance, if there's still a person that puts that execution, that means there is an agency in that person to reject. No matter what social social construct forces you to do something, if you, at the end of the day, wants to, for example, put that bullet down so you don't need to be shamed by the public, so you don't need to be fired by the army, that means you're putting self-interest in front of human rights, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that in itself, it's the nature of every crime. But let's start the speech by evaluating the true problems in the case of opposition, right? Firstly, they say, in a war condition, commanders of war do not think of just war. If this is truly the premise of opposition team, then they wouldn't punish commanders that do war crimes in the first place. We say at the end of the day, their side of the house will be a war with many and many atrocities, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, if they want to say that they want to also create further reformation in the army, the question is how, ladies and gentlemen, because this is the single thing that can reform the army, we say. But thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, they say the whole premise of opposition team is talking about how they can only criticize people when they are immune. My extension will directly tackle this argument. But lastly, they say that this will expose the strategy of each individual government in war. Ladies and gentlemen, the interest and the nature of war in our current day and age is no longer for survivability. Notice that every strategy that you use, it is not important for you to win. It is important for you to do that war justly. Because at the moment that you're not just, ladies and gentlemen, you're just putting self-interest in the you're just putting self-interest under the notion of power, ladies and gentlemen. We don't think that war in our current state should be played on the eyes of power. Because if you want to say that every single country like the United States wages war in order for the greater good, then you must ensure that the way you win is also good, ladies and gentlemen. You can't say that you want to justify atrocities for that. How will I extend my case? We will say that this increases the standing of a soldier. This will break down entirely why people can actually criticize when they're not immune, not when they're immune. A soldier currently are seen as basically robots. They are viewed by their superiors as only servants of their cause that do not have a standing in what they say, right? This is what in nature allows significant war or military crimes to happen in the first place. It comes from the concentration of power just on a central few whose interest is to win, often to just win wars rather than doing it justly. Why is this so? As a national leader, my interest, you are looking from an eagle's eyes perspective, in which you do not see the grounded impact as personal to you. At the end of the day, even if you know as a leader that you can just even if you know as a leader that these people will still be decimated, that these innocent people will still die, you can just say, I can close it up through classified information. But what is the difference as a soldier? As a soldier, every bullet you shoot is personal. Every cannon you shoot is personal. Every villager bomb is your mistake, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is with the vicarious liability, you disallow these people to have a say. It's always just follow your superiors. They will take the blame, ladies and gentlemen. The generals will say, if you do not follow, there's no risk for you. The generals say, just do it. I will take the blame. There's more pressure for you to not have accountability at all, ladies and gentlemen, as a soldier. But what changes if vicarious liability is applied? What changes, ladies and gentlemen? When vicarious liability is applied, you can finally provide a rationality behind the word no. You finally have a legal rationality behind the word no, that you can prove to your generals that this is not what I actually want, ladies and gentlemen, that this is something that I can reject, because if not, I will be guilty, not you, ladies, no you, general. I will always be the one that is liable. At the end of the day, what is the result of this motion? The result of this motion is the fact that there will be constant check and balances that would create just war, that would create operations that are humane, ladies and gentlemen. What is the problem with our current system? Our current system, we do not, punishing leaders is definitely not enough. Why? First, the impact is already there. If we just want to punish people after we put chemical bombs, people in Syria are already suffocating. Children are already dying. Old people cannot survive, ladies and gentlemen. But if we put this vicarious liability down and say that the soldiers can constantly question the generals, ladies and gentlemen, that means that there will be always check and balances. There will always be a check and balance on the order that is actually given, ladies and gentlemen. This means that at the end of the day, you can't just be complicit. You must think critically on whether this order is actually something that adheres to you. And this is not only one individual, as Syagung said. This will always be put in countless of individuals' minds, ladies and gentlemen. That means that the generals must always create a just war. The interest of war in our current day and age is already different. We're not talking about countries fighting for their survivability. We're not talking about countries creating their own state. We're talking about whether we want to protect something or not. The parameter of this protection being just or not is really impactful towards the actual action or the actual result that you expect. If you want the United States of America to finally be able to protect human rights without criticism, you need to ensure that the United States of America conducts just war in order for people to actually believe in the help that the United States of America wants to give. At the end of the day, this will create just war, and this is the ideal society that we want in the 21st century, where we already accepted the Declaration of Human Rights. We beg to propose.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is so easy for Derril to come up here and say that, okay, the commander only give comments, they would concede, but the one who prosecute those things are the soldiers. Yeah, that's an exact thing and an obvious thing of the debate. The soldiers is the one that do operations, and the commanders is the one that sit in the United States of America, meanwhile the other are in Middle East. But the question of the debate isn't a question of who prosecute those things on the ground, but who gives the comment for the people and who should be held responsible for the things, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't necessarily think that is just a valid reason for you to give in this debate. Because notice when he came up here and say that, oh, it's a selfish interest for them to kill these individuals. It's untrue, right? Because if you are so selfish, like intentionally killing other people, considering the fact that the comments from Commander is so strong and so persuasive, more often than not, you will not kill that other innocent people, because if you kill, you will be fired as well under their side. So it's not true that you have a selfish interest and the intention to kill these individuals to begin with. Those are becoming the source of the commanders and not these individuals to do so. Because let's be clear, what is Gov burden in this debate? Gov burden isn't to tell you that soldiers can actually criticize, can actually avoid, can actually not do those things. But their burden is to explain what is the ratio behind of them doing, what is the ratio behind it of them capable out of doing so, which if I don't think I've ever been explained in this debate. I will answer several things in my speech. First off, I'm going to talk about, is it justified to accept the vicarious liability? Second, I'm going to talk about the reformations of military. And lastly, I'll tell you why eradicating vicarious liability hinders the solvency of war. First off, let's talk about the justifications point, right? Is it justified to accept vicarious liability? They told us that, oh, these soldiers already consented to do so, thus we need to prosecute them. I don't think so. Like, this is not an ideal form of consent. Considering the fact that now you are forced to do so and to follow the demands of your commander, that's not an ideal form of consent. That is a forceful consent, ladies and gentlemen. But we will concede when again tells you that you have the capacity to criticize. But we think it is untrue because the hierarchy is just cultivated and entrenched to the soldiers. We're not living in a conditions where you can simply call out and criticize those things to begin with. More often than not, you are unable to do and you're just reluctant to do so because you felt that your commander has contributed so much to the growth of your inside military system. But second, even if you can criticize, like literally, this debate is not about when you current conditions, without this law, you can criticize, right? That's their burden. Not telling us after this, then there will be an ability to criticize. It's a different thing, right? Because in order for you to be prosecuted, you need to be able to firstly prove that in current situations, without their responsibility, you are able to criticize, not after applying their responsibility. So that's just untrue. But second, even if you can criticize under their sides, it is still less effective because your criticism will just be seen as inferior one. It will only be seen as a small criticism to begin with. They will not be perceived as a legitimate form of criticism because it is not from the commander, it is just from you as a soldier. When you said that you can collectively bargain, it didn't change the commands of the leaders, so your criticism does not really work under your side. But here's the most important reasons why criticism under their side cannot work. Because notice that the command that is being given by the commander are more likely come inside the war and during the war, not before the war. The conditions inside and during the war is so complex and complicated. You cannot expect individuals to be able to rationalize and calculate everything. Okay, what my commander said is wrong, so I just need to reject all of those things. You are in a conditions of dilemma where you need to be able to choose. If you don't, because the rhetorics that your commander gives, if you don't follow my order, then what you are going to do, you are also going to sacrifice other forms of individuals. So you are in a dilemma position that cannot even negate the fact of your commander. So you are forced to do in that situation. This justifications, if I may tell you, was not becoming a single consideration of Derril, very dismissive. Second, let's talk about the formations of military, right? Because what Derril introduces to you is that so dismissive. He didn't even negate Hanum's point, whereas soldiers are now have less of the ability and less of the willingness to report all of the evidences that happens during the war, right? Because they are afraid out of being prosecuted as well. The only defense Derril has is by running from that burden and telling you that your interest is winning war. That's not a good response for you because that's running away from your burden. Why then military in the soldiers under your side would more likely report towards all of those things. But let's talk about interest of winning war. I think under your sides, you will still have this interest either, right, of winning a war because that's just your responsibility as well under your sides. But we think creating a just war isn't an argument to prosecute the soldiers, but an argument to enforce international humanitarian law standards to begin with. Because under current status quo, you can just, for example, that you are able to currently ban the destructive war or destructive weapons that can harm innocent people. So I think interest of winning war is not a consideration of this debate. This is the third thing that I'm going to tell you, which is the most important thing. Why eradicating vicarious liability hinders the solvency of war. Notice that in current situations, we have a lot of complicated conflict, either in Middle East or other conflicting areas. What we need in these situations is that a massive number of troops and fast operations to save the lives of people. The scenario that is more likely to happen under their sides is either one, less of troops will engage to it because now they know I might end up being prosecuted and being held liable for my operations there. But number two, even if more troops happens under their side or engage in that conflict, it's going to take a longer time because now they will be more skeptical to their commanders. They keep on questioning whether or not the comments are legitimate. Now they're not forming a military in a unity. They're spread and they're not function as how it's supposed to be, ladies and gentlemen. We will concede under our sides. Maybe a fast time of war to some extent might be reckless. But notice the lives of people are being jeopardized. And what we need to do now is at least save the people. As opposed to your sides, when you take a longer time, individuals on the ground, maybe after 1 second you deny them, they already died, ended up spoiled by ISIS, right? So under your sides, you cannot deny the fact that war will take a very long time because now you have to keep questioning and you have to always criticize your commander. There's no trust between that military operations considering the fact that now if I follow the commanders, I might also edit being prosecuted. I think that maybe this motion does not sound intuitive for opposition, but you need to take a look on the bigger picture that the ability of the individuals to solve war should be the #1 priority, and to save the lives of people we're very proud of.
All the defense coming from the opposition side of the House only rely on one assumption, that these soldiers are not capable to criticize. As government, we are not talking that in the status quo, they are totally capable. We understand in war, in conflict, there are various and multidimensional circumstances in which they are able and not. But we say this proposal is allowing more soldiers to incentivizing them to speak up against this dictatorship leaders. We can see that currently we are given the circumstances that currently maybe these leaders are dictator. But we say in their side of the House, brainwash and dictatorship military operation will still continue because at their best case scenario, change is contingent to only the reflection and remorse of the leaders, ladies and gentlemen. We say on our side of the House, check and balance and accountability is going to be better because we say that change is only possible if there is a communal evaluation for all soldiers and military members, ladies and gentlemen. We say military is a form of teamwork, and we say change is not going to be only capable if it's only being realized only by the leader, right? Okay, so in this debate, I'm going to talk about no thank you. So in this debate, I'm going to talk about 3 main issues. First of all, I'm going to talk about accountability. Second, I'm going to talk about justice system. But lastly, I'm going to talk about the behavior of the soldier. Going to the accountability, right? We say currently, check and balance in the status quo only occur in one head, in one individual, which is the leader. We say best form of check and balance is going to be occur if we distribute the function to the numerous people and create active conscience of what is happening in the military ground, ladies and gentlemen. They never prove to you why the leaders is the ultimate actor that's only capable in doing the function of accountability and check and balance. We say currently it will create incentives to the entire military system to evaluate the overall operation and speak up, ladies and gentlemen. Never been rebutted by the second speaker, right? We say currently check and balance is the function and exactly the purpose of our proposal in our today's debate. Okay, go to the second issue, right? Let's talk about the behavior of soldier. This is interesting, right? Because they tell us that these people are doing it's only being nationalistic. People we will perceive as a traitor. Okay, what does that mean? It means that they submit to us an inconsistent characteristic. Because first, they say these people don't have ability to control, but saying that these people have fear to be perceived as traitor means that they are able to calculate that this action is wrong, that this action is actually bad, but if they don't do this, they will be perceived as traitor. What does that mean? It means that there is an embodiment of self-interest here, ladies and gentlemen. The intention to maintain power and position exists. Meanwhile, they know at the cost of their maintaining power and maintaining their position, they are going to sacrifice more people on the ground, more victims or war crimes, never being rebutted by the opposition of the House. Exactly now, their rejection will be legitimate because they can say, I don't want to be prison, I still want to serve my country. I don't want to obey to that kind of comment because I know that thing is going to make me enter the jail and the prison in itself. We say those are creating a legitimate rejection reason for the soldiers to go up against the false claim, false comment from the comment. No, thank you. But let's talk about brainwash, right? Is that exist? No, we don't think so. People join military when they are already adult, when they already get information what is universally claimed as right and wrong. Killing using chemical bombs, torturing is things that are universally deemed as wrong. We never condone to the act of killing. These soldiers know that this is a wrong thing. But even if that brainwash does exist, this is a mechanism to counterbalance that kind of indoctrination because this military court will tell that this is a wrong thing and as soldiers, you should not condone to that action. In that side of the House, brainwash will still sustain and this leader will still have the capacity to do brainwash because military court does not serve its function in order to debunk all the brainwash and indoctrination and the value that's entrenched within the military camp. But lastly, they talk about stress and under panic and so on and so forth. No, we don't think so, right? We say as soldiers, you are already being trained as an actor and as a figure that's already capable in order to mitigating stress and dilemma within the war crime. We say that soldiers are already well trained and we say stress is not going to become a factor that we should consider. And that's the debate. But lastly, let me talk about the justice system, right? Yes.
If your first problem is indoctrination and evil comments, we say exactly that's the moment for you to change the behavior of the leader without necessarily jeopardizing the life of the soldiers in itself.
First of all, brainwash is your problem, not mine. But second of all, we say currently that this generals is also going to be punished, right? We never say that these leaders are not going to go immune to the punishment. We say on our side of the house it's going to be better because we're going to both punish these generals and these member of soldiers. We say we are going to criminalize the crime, the mastermind of this crime, and we're also going to prosecute the executor of this crime. But let me talk about the justice system, right? We say currently they say it's unfair justice system because the order is supreme and there's no intention by the soldiers. They are only proxy. Okay, let me analyze. Is intention the only thing that we consider? No, we always consider multi-dimensional reason. That's why we punish negligence in the military court. We say this is a form of complacency to the act of war crime, and we say that is in itself already wrong. Because again, and there has repeatedly and continuously telling the adjudicator that this is a form of complacency, and by the means they're executing this, means that they have degree of control, but they continue, they stay doing that action. Ladies and gentlemen, that symbolizes that they have degree of control, but they still continue. At the very worst case, they're going to be get fired. But we say get fired should be an action that you should take in comparison in committing war crimes. We say the means that they stay means that they're complacent and they choose their position in comparison in sacrificing all of these victims. We say they never tell us why currently that is a just system. But lastly, let me talk about incentive. They say that the reason of reform is vicarious liability. No, we don't think so. Because when you can always opt out from punishment and pass it to your leader, it will reduce your incentive to speak up. Also never being rebutted by the opposition side of the house. We already characterized to you if currently that our military system and our military operation is that fucked up, is that dictatorship, we need to do something. We submit to you that this policy is going to solve. They never tell you how in their side of the house it's going to be better. How in their side of the house the natural change is going to occur. Because they only rely on one assumption that the leader will change. But how? They never tell us. We say that currently this is going to create a communal participation of evaluation and accountability. We say there is never a harm of including more people to evaluation system. I've never been proud to speak in final lecture.
If government accuse us by saying that all our cases are basis that this military operation and these military people are not able to, deconstruct their commanders, that is exactly the same burden that they need to defend. On their side, all on the basis of their argumentations is that these military troops are able to deconstruct and are able, for example, to fight these commanders to begin with. And we say that saying no over and over again, like Jessica did, is called dismissive and not an engagement. What I'm going to prove to you is two things. One, understanding that we have a very different context. I'm going to clarify that what kind of, for example, coup d'etat that they want to talk about is practically impossible to happen. I'm going to establish which contexts are much more likely to happen. But second of all, I'm also going to talk about what kind of the principal levels why we cannot do this at the Let's talk about this. First of all, military courts has a very distinctive different than normal court. This is why we do not feel, for example, which is one is right, which one is wrong. That is why, for example, it's called being necessary or not. We do not punish you. This means military court basis is always about survivability of certain individuals, and that we say is a self-interest. That is why self-defense is called self-interest, and that is why self-interest in any possible impossible scenarios are justified for you to free someone of that certain consequences to begin with. This is why, for example, when you self-defense against certain rapists, that is self-interest for you to survive, and that is practically possible to happen. Sure, we do not engage to say that these people do not have self-interest. That's practically impossible, understanding we are humans, but we're saying that self-interest is justified in any other matters to begin with. Second of all, let's talk about the context, right? First about the where. We think that these proposals does not happen in Indonesia or United States of America prior to the war. It happens when you're already in Iraq, you're already in Afghanistan, when you're already at war in Syria. What does this mean? This means if you get, for example, if you call a traitor or you get a desertion, that does not possibly end at you losing your job. It might possibly end at you losing your life as a traitor. For example, we think that right now the most possible scenarios is that you're going to be replaced because military troops are practically replaceable anyway. anyway. But second of all, what most likely to happen is that your commander is going to strategize your location in places that you are more likely, for example, to die, or you're more likely to be useful to begin with. Why does this so? Because you're practically useless in a military strategy or in upper level. Then why do we use you at the upper level when you can use you as a foot soldiers to begin with? Second of all, let's talk about the timing, right? Because this is something that happens. In a house, what they're going to have is that you're going to have counterbalance, and what they're going to protect is that you're going to protest towards your commander prior to the existence of chemical weapons distributions. This is problematic because one, our commanders does not tell you that we're going to use military weapons prior to the war. It consists of 10 seconds because before we launch that operations, and we say that it's practically impossible for you to create a communal or organizations for you to get a coup d'etat to begin with. That is not likely to happen, I know. But second of all, we say that it's most likely to happen that this critique that they are trying to say happens after the criminal actions happens. And this is why Hanum argumentations matters. Because if the crime already done, we think that these individuals will never have any incentive to report to the ICC or to military court, because if they report that, they're going to be punished anyway. And this is something that they need to justify at FD, right? Even if that it's going to be possible, we think that that is problematic at FD. Why? Because if that existed when you are able to communal and that, etc., what you're going to have is a longer war. If what you're going to have is, for example, a non-rational, non-strategic military operations, and this is something that is particularly different from the current court. We say when you have a longer war, meaning that you're going to have more possibilities of having war criminal actions, you're going to have more possibilities of killers and sufficient, etc. We say what happens on their side of the house is going to create much more casualties at FD. That is why we say that the most likely scenario that happens in our side of the house at FD. But let's talk about, the idea of principles levels. We think that these individuals will never have any intentions to use chemical weapons. How do we actually use chemical weapon, and what comes after that? We say when certain weapons are already used, the more likely possibilities is that the enemy is going to counterbalance you or counter-attack you with the enough or higher weaponry to begin with. This is problematic in two senses. One, escalations of conflict will be more likely to occur on foot soldiers and the one who operates it to begin with. We say this is the reasons why that soldiers inherently do not want to have escalations of war, because the damage of that escalations goes directly towards foot soldiers and not towards these individuals. Right? People, we think that right now, soldiers are particularly different than commanders, because in times of war, the reasons why they exist in this war are not only to win the war, but they want to survive also. That is why they're going to do everything that they can to not have any escalations like using chemical weapon at FD. Even if that they have certain intentions, we think that these individuals will never have any ways for you to vocalize that concerns to begin with. Hanum already established that at FD. But let's engage in the idea that these people will be able, for example, to coup d'etat and etc. And we think that that is practically justified for them to stay silent and for them to actually do everything that they can. Why? We say self-defense is not only applied to your life. Self-defense applies to circumstances like to other harms as well. And that harms is inherently subjective towards everyone, and we say that everyone needs to have the right to create decisions based on that right. We say that even if these self-defense only apply, for example, to have their jobs taken from them, we think that is particularly justified for them to take, understanding that if the amount of extensions of this job going to be gone is going to be determined by these particular individuals. This is called engagement. We think that Jessica do not have that at her speech. Right? Lastly, let's talk about, for example, why we think it's going to create a better structural reformations of war. One, sure, our sides, you're going to have dependent on the commanders and etc. But that's not true. We're going to also dependent towards soldiers who reported towards this commander to begin with. So even if that these commanders do not want to change, well, that's why we have court. We're going to force them to change by the, for example, witnesses that come from these soldiers to begin with. But B, we say that commanders are not going to be likely to create chemical weapons, because what happens is they're going to be scared, understand in the future that these soldiers are able to report these criminal actions that has been done at the state. But what happens on the other side, and this is my comparison, something that Jessica does not have also. On the side of the house, sure, there's going to be coup d'etat in the best case. It's going to take a longer war. We do not want that. But even if that there are, for example, even if that after the war happens, what's going to happen is a stagnant process of you searching for evidence without necessarily solving the criminals that happens. We think that UGM deserves to win. If you do not think so, sorry, bye.
All government's argument is highly contingent upon these soldiers have a selfish, bitch intention to only kill people. This is a very extreme characterization of soldiers. I mean, if the comments of your commander is strongly persuasive, and if the soldiers really afraid out of being fired, then they will not intentionally do that because they would be fired anyway. The most confusing part of Gav's speech is when they will justify it's okay for you to get fired. Let's just you get fired, not killing other people. It's not that easy for you to say that, right? The lives of them is so contingent upon this works in military. They don't have any alternative. And how could you easily say that let's just get fired and go out from that military operations? I need to discharge several things from Gov before proceeding to the reasons why op needs to win. On the evaluations, right, and checks and balances and etc. This is literally an argument that is not exclusive. Because under our side, Hanum clearly tells you that if you punish the leader, the future leader will change because afraid of being persecuted, more likely they will be more cautious, they would still protect its soldiers as well because he's afraid out of being persecuted as well. That's not an exclusive argument. If the tipping point of you adjudicators giving them winning only because they said at least there is a collective check and balances and accountability, that's not a positive contribution, that is a rhetoric left unproven. First reason why government needs to lose. On the principle level, they told us two things. Okay, you do consent to it and you create harm. Surely they prosecute on the ground. The debate is not whether they are the one that prosecute or not, but who gives them that comment for them to do so. The only defense we heard from proposition is that, okay, but they are complicit to it. Sure, but Gov burden is to tell you why complicit is a legitimate parameter to punish them. Because Hanum tells you that even when you kill other burglar that wants to kill you, you can be forgiven in court because it's a matter of self-defense. You are also complicit to that situation, but you cannot be punished under our sides. It indicates that complicit is not the parameter of the principle that Gov needs to win in this debate. We even already engaged the scenario that even if you can criticize, I told you clearly in my speech that inside a complex war, you cannot criticize because it's very short for you. You just cannot debate during war, right? But number two, an ideal criticism is only when you apply their policy. But the context of the debate happens before you get their proposal. It's their burden to justify that why it's okay. What government never engaged is what if this person really innocent and why it's still fine to punish them under their side. Second reason why they need to lose on the who better solves war, right? I think they completely dismiss this point. Even if you wanted to give them winning on the principle or you want to deadlock it, I think the most important thing is the solvency of war under opposition. Because we told you from the very beginning that number one, soldiers now will have the willingness to report all of the evidences that they experiences during war, considering the fact that if they told all of those things, their their liability will be more, will be burdened, they will be prosecuted under your sides. So less evidence, which is very important in order for you to future authorize another war, which based on these experiences and evidences. But the second thing is this, about the longer time of war. We even already contextualize this, that under their sides, the war is going to be longer time because now the commanders and the soldiers have a trust issue. They're going to question one another and becoming more skeptical. Now the war is being hindered by your policy. Their burden, we already even engaged the scenario that we will concede that a short time of war or a short decision making maybe would sometimes be reckless and maybe it's not necessarily perfect, right? But what we argue to you in opposition, that at least we can save people who currently, in a very sensitive time of war, they at least can be saved. What they never justify is why even if war is going to take a longer time and it's going to take a much casualties, it is perfectly fine to apply this policy. UGM claims the victory of this year also.
Mr. Speaker, this debate was never about prolonging war. this debate, if it's about prolonging war and they want to push that burden, it is not our burden. That's the solution that they wanted to give. Then they needed to explain why putting chemical weapons down on the floor will suddenly create a faster solving war. That is something that they didn't prove until the end of the debate. This debate is about the function of military courts and how it affects the military. Whether it makes the military an entity that is most just. There is no relevance of discussing whether this creates a winning military, because we're not talking about a winning military. We're talking about a war in a war in which it's not just about survivability, a war in which every state already has the sovereignty to live. We're talking about how to spread justice and how best to spread justice. And we say that is with a just military, not a winning and swift military, ladies and gentlemen. But notice that the speeches coming before, other than pushing burdens that are unfair, also put arguments that are unfair. Notice that Sandi proposed an argument talking about how commanders won't use chemical weapons. An argument that was not spoken out by the first or second speaker at all, ladies and gentlemen. But this is an argument that shouldn't be counted. But even if that this is the case, their burden is to defend how Bashar al-Assad last week dropped that bomb. Our characterization that leaders want to win means that people will actually use chemical weapons in times of war, ladies and gentlemen. But moreover, if they want to say that commanders will be challenged by courts, they also need to defend the atrocities that are done in the status quo, because they haven't done that, ladies and gentlemen. They cannot win simply on claiming those arguments, right? So let's evaluate this debate into 4 clashes. Firstly, whether soldiers have agency. All of their reasons talk about nationalism, honor, and employment. And what they say is these people do not have self-interest. Nationalism, honor, and employment leads to lavish living, which is self-interest, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not want to stop doing those atrocities. At the end of the day, all of these reasons are reasons of self-interest over human dignity, which means that you're actually doing a crime. We provided to you 2 reasons why soldiers have agency. First, they have because they're the ones who actually fires those bullets, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, Jessica already added an extra reasoning, because these people are already trained and they wouldn't panic in times of war. Therefore, their characterizations of these people panicking and shooting for survival, they have no place in this debate, ladies and gentlemen. We're not talking about shooting for survival. At their best case scenario, let's take them at their base. At their best, they want to say that it is okay for these people to shoot for survival. At their best, they're not rejecting the idea, if these people are not shooting for survival, that they're actually still guilty, ladies and gentlemen. We win that clash. Second clash, where the current check and balance system is still enough. They say that it is not, because the chain of command is still rigid. This is not an argument. This is only a description, ladies and gentlemen. The solution only comes from our side of the house, when we say that we actually provide rationality to the people who actually makes the decision at the end of the day. That clash is won by our side. But thirdly, which type of war are we currently experiencing? They never rebutted us on this. Therefore, it is valid to say that the war that they're discussing is also the modernized war that have no interest in sovereignty at all. Their side of the house is already very weak. Let's put the nail in the coffin. Whether soldiers will actually report. This is our only argument is saying that there's no immunity, therefore they won't report. But the second speaker of government side already gave you an argument, one whole argument, ladies and gentlemen, on why immunity is the reason these people will not report, due to the fact that these people are afraid of the law and logical reasoning of their superiors that have higher legal ground, never rebutted by opposition team. Proposition team and the team of Yellow Jackets should win this debate.